there in the as was there in the chanting, the reason that we take refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha is not for money, not for name, not for fame, but we take refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha because we have big problem, big suffering that is being entrapped in the cycle of existence. So the only way that can cure this lingering suffering and problem is to follow the path taught by the Buddha. Because even though we do not want suffering, we get continuous suffering. Even though we want happiness, but we are unable to get constant supply of happiness. Because what we want and what we do are two different things. We want happiness, but we go in the wrong way. As Shantideva said in his Bodhisattva way of life, even though we want happiness, but because of ignorance, we destroy our own happiness as if it is our enemy. We have this wish to shun suffering, but because of ignorance, we destroy, because of ignorance, we continue to chase and run after suffering. So therefore, the only teacher that can guide us the right path is the Buddha. And what he taught is found in his teaching. But actually, the teaching also not just the scriptures, but it actually the path that leads to nirvana and liberation. Then we also need Sangha, because we need good examples. For example, in today's world, how many are there who believe in spiritual practice? And among that, how many are there who believe in the Buddhist teaching? And even among that, how many are there who genuinely practice the teaching? Not many. There may be many who say, I'm Buddhist, but not many who genuinely practice it. So unless we practice it, we'll never get the benefit. Because the reason that we should do Dharma practice is because we are controlled by negative emotions. Negative emotions will not go away by simply wishing, but they can be reduced and also eliminated if we cultivate the positive counter forces. So therefore, the Buddha's teaching is extremely important. Then also, as I said, we are ordinary people. Despite our wanting to do the practice, we might again slip back into our ordinary way of thinking and ordinary way of life. So therefore, it is very important to have good friends, good Dharma friends around. So therefore, I'm happy that you have this Jewel Heart Dharma friends, which is not ordinary friend, but friends that at least attempting to move on the path to liberation and enlightenment. Such friends are very rare. So I thank you for asking me to give this talk, whatever be the reason. It's always nice to meet people with good thoughts and good motivations. So I count you as good people. That itself is something that you should rejoice. In today's world, there are many, or majority, who spend their life just focusing on getting money, getting famous, getting powerful. So in this way, people simply aspire to get peace and happiness from outside. But what the Buddha taught was that we cannot get this long-lasting happiness unless we go within ourselves, reduce the negative emotions, strengthen the positive emotions. Even the Buddha, he can only show the path, but we who are the followers must practice the path that he has taught. That's one reason that we don't believe in a creator God. In Buddhism, we are more or less, we are the creator. We create our own karma, positive or negative. Depending upon that, we experience happiness or suffering. So therefore, the Buddha said, I have shown you the path to liberation, and liberation is up to you. So he was basically saying, I'm like your teacher, and I can only teach. But you as the student must do your homework. Otherwise, you will fail. Not only fail, but fail miserably. Right? So therefore, on other occasions, the Buddha said, I'm like a doctor or physician. The Buddha is like a physician, a doctor. He can diagnose your illness. Dharma is like a medicine. So the medicine like teaching the Buddha has given. But unless you take the medicine, your illness can never be cured. Now, even if you had a good doctor, good medicine, but because you are so ill, you are bedridden, unless you have some nurses or compounders or friends, relatives who look after you, you will not be able to look after yourself. So like that, we need a Sangha, spiritual friends. Now, the question about the relevance of Buddha's teaching in today's world. Buddhist philosophy, if you study Buddhist philosophy, in my case, I'm supposed to have studied many years. So based on that little knowledge and understanding, I can safely say the Buddhist teaching and Buddhist philosophy is a timeless philosophy, like a gold. And it is because of this the Buddha had the courage to say, O bhikshus and wise men, just as the goldsmith judges the gold by cutting, rubbing, and putting under the fire, similarly, well examine my teaching and practice them, and not because you respect me. So perhaps in the world, he is perhaps the only teacher who had that courage to say that you just don't follow my teaching blindly, don't cultivate blind faith, use your common sense, use your thinking mind, use your intellectual sharpness, and judge my teaching on the level that is manifest, something that you can see directly, judge it. On the level where you can use inferential cognition, reason it out. And on the completely hidden meaning, you should again analyze it by other means. So through that way, when you are able to see the correctness of the teaching, then you need to follow it. So therefore, in Buddhism, there is no room for blind faith. Unfortunately, like ordinary people, we also very often follow blindly. Follow blindly means simply believing in something without knowing what you are doing, why you should do that, what is the relevance. So therefore, I wanted to say a few words on the relevance of Buddha's teaching in today's world. Now, in today's world, it is without caution that we made a lot of material progress. We can now like have breakfast in America, lunch in Europe, and dinner in Asia or India, or even in Dharamsala, right? So much material progress. And not necessarily the whole population of the world is benefiting, but there are a lot of facilities like that. In terms of external material progress, technological development, we made a lot of progress, which must be appreciated. And we must thank science and technology for that achievement. For example, this COVID-19, this pandemic, before that also, the world has seen many pandemics, like the Spanish flu, where millions died. And during those days, when there is a pandemic, it took several years to have a vaccine come out. This time, the pandemic itself is, of course, horrible, but within a year or so, so many vaccines came out. So which is, again, good news. And also, we should consider not only the negative aspect, but also the positive aspect. But my point is that despite this external technological progress development, including the quick production of vaccines, still the inner human quality, like loving kindness, compassion, feeling for others, sense of responsibility, these are still lacking. These are still lacking. In fact, if you trace the source of the COVID-19, whether it came out from the Chinese lab or whatever, it certainly is a product of human misadventure with other animals. According to some reports, 60% of our human illnesses are because of our mistreatment of other animals. We think this universe belongs to only human beings, and other species are only to be used as a sport. Animals, all kinds of animals should be kept in the zoo so that we can have fun. That's not the worst part. Then all those animals are to be killed, to be eaten, their skin to be used, their leather to be used. There's so much unfortunate things happening. And according to the Buddhist law of causality, if you do certain negative things, you cannot escape the fruit. Like we had a tsunami, very strong tsunami in Japan. So many people died. And at that time I felt, oh, it's because of too much killing of fish. Maybe, I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I thought maybe. Then we had mad cow disease. How many cows are killed alive? Right? Then we had bird flu. How many birds are killed to save human beings? Right? So we had so many diseases related to animal, which basically I think is due to human being, because human beings are the ones who is committing the greatest crime on this planet. Look at pollution. I don't have to use any example or reason to prove that these pollutions are not created by human beings. Obviously, these are created by human beings. Basically, all these problems, including pollution, and then look at the environmental degradation. If you don't think it looks okay, but if you think carefully, I sometimes when I think I get scared with this continuous environmental destruction and degradation. Because with systematic and continuous destruction of environment, there will be a time when there will be shortage of everything, especially water to drink. At that time, there is no vaccine. Okay, right now the pandemic is of course unfortunate, but still we have all types of vaccines. Now, even yesterday and today, I was hearing about this more dangerous, pandemic originating from Africa and things like that, said to be very contagious, spreading very quickly, things like that. But still, we have the vaccines. So that present vaccine may not solve all the problem, but the basic potential is there. So the scientists need to modify it a little bit to deal with all these different mutations. So that is unfortunate, but still, I think we can cope with it, manage with it. Now, with the environmental destruction, as I've told you, once we see, already we are seeing a little bit of it, the changing patterns of the climate, right? We are all seeing it in everywhere. In Dharamsala, it's very noticeable. Basically, in the high up in the mountain, quite clean, but still we, in terms of the seasons, there is now no clear-cut seasons. Sometimes summer comes too quickly, sometimes winter comes too quickly. There's no clear-cut pattern of the weathers. This is, I think, something that is evident in all the parts of the world. So the sign of drastic change of climate and environmental destruction is there to all of us to see. Still, some of the leaders of the world refuse to be a signatory for climate improvement and environmental improvement. So the point that I'm making is human beings have this great intelligence, big brain, big head. But this brain, this sharp brain and great intelligence, unfortunately, is used in the wrong way. Buddha also had the same intelligence. He's the same human being, but he used that great potential, the human intelligence, to the right way, to develop loving kindness, to develop compassion, to develop bodhicitta, to develop wisdom, understanding, truth. And because of that, just one person in the name of the Buddha benefited so many people. Still, we have over 500 million who say that they are Buddhist. And then there are many others who may not say they are Buddhist, but they very much appreciate the Buddha's teaching and see Buddha as an embodiment of compassion. So there is no question about the extensive benefit. It is very much there. This is a doing of one person. But in our case, we use this brain and intelligence for short-term benefit, for temporary pleasures, for fulfilling only the sensual needs. And we chase and run to get things from outside, be it money, be it fame, be it name, right? And hardly anybody does meditation, go inside and attempts to transform one's own human mind. Don't make any effort to regulate the emotions. So the many of the misfortunes that we are experiencing today is because we let our emotions run wild. We have no sense of what is constructive emotion, what is destructive emotion. Unfortunately, even the scientists, sometimes they say there's nothing positive or negative about emotion. All emotions are necessary. Yes, they may have a point. But at the end of the day, we all know that if you let your emotions run wild, if you let your anger control you, if you let your attachment control you, then you can see how destructive it is. Only if we sit and think a little bit and take the examples from our own personal life, because we have all been angry at one or the other time. We all have developed obsession and attachment, so forth. We know that. So to make a long story short, today we have so many types of problems in the world, primarily because of relentless obsession with material things, attachment. As Mahatma Gandhi said, there is enough for everybody's need, but there is not enough for everybody's greed. We are trying to fulfill the greed today. And what is the problem with that? People might ask these questions, saying, what's the problem with that? Let people enjoy. Let people exploit the natural resources. People might say things like that, but we need to understand one thing. The so-called progress that we are trying to achieve in today's world, the progress in the material field has to come from material resources. Material resources, by definition, have limitation because they are physical resources. So you cannot make unlimited progress from limited resources. There is a scarcity of water. There is a dwindling of natural resources of any kind, right? So it is wrong that every government thinks that there should be, every year there should be improvement in its GDP. Impossible. Unrealistic. Whereas in the case of human mind, you can actually make limitless progress. It is like space. It is all yours. You don't have to get a permission from the government, you don't have to buy a, just like buying a place to build your house. It's not like that. You can build, you can construct all these fine internal qualities like loving kindness, compassion, everything you can have, you can develop. But there, we're all satisfied. At the most, we'll say, I did 5 minutes meditation in the morning. That's the problem. That's the problem. We are only like going out, running out. What is out there? The object, the beautiful form, the beautiful sight, the pleasant sound, the tasty food. We are only running after the 5 sensual objects. From these 5 sensual objects, you will get pleasure, not happiness. Or even if you get happiness, that will be short-lived happiness. So it is pertinent to ask a question here, which I normally do when I give teachings or talks. I always ask people, do you want happiness? So I ask this question to you also. Do you want happiness? Yes, everybody will say, yes, I want happiness. Then I kind of tease them by asking a second question where I say, okay, if you want happiness, for how many days you want happiness? For how many days? Then then they smile. Then they laugh. Which means, they laugh because they are saying that, no, Geshe, I want happiness, not for a few days, I want happiness as long as possible. And that is okay. That's your right. You're absolutely right to, expect that long-lasting happiness. But the question is, from where are you going to get that long-lasting happiness? So ask this question repeatedly. The Jewel Heart members should ask this question. I'm sure you have asked this question before, but there's no harm in asking this question again and again because we are not practicing much, So ask this question, from where are you going to get that long-lasting happiness? Are you going to get that long-lasting happiness from your relatives and friends? No. From money? No. From name and fame? No. I'm not saying you don't need name and fame. I'm not saying you don't need friends and relatives. I'm not saying all those things. But all I'm saying is the long-lasting happiness, the most important happiness you can't get from what is outside of you. It has to be cultivated from within yourself. This leads to the next question. Okay, if you want long-lasting happiness, how can we get it? You can get it by changing your attitude. You can get it by changing your mental outlook. Now, what do we mean by changing mental outlook? Changing mental outlook means that you should live or you should think in accordance with the law of nature. That needs some homework, some study, reflection, and see whether you're going in accordance with the law of nature. I don't know whether you know this Tibetan word or not. The Tibetan word for Dharma or religion is Chu. So Chu means to transform, not only change, but to transform. Transform from negative to the positive, that's one way of interpretation. The another way of interpretation is to transform means to adjust your attitude in accordance with the law of nature. Right? So that's why Buddha repeatedly taught these 4 seals, which is in accordance with the law of nature. All conditioned things are impermanent. This is law of nature. This is not something invented by Buddha. All conditioned things are impermanent. All contaminated phenomena are in the nature of suffering. All phenomena are empty and selfless. Nirvana is peace and virtue. That is in accordance with the law of nature. So this is the beauty of the Buddha's teaching. As I said earlier, he never said, you just have faith in me and all your problems will disappear. He said, live your life in accordance with the law of nature. Law of nature means impermanence. Change is law of nature. It's not only Buddha, many ancient Greek philosophers and subsequently many other thinkers, philosophers, they all said things are in a flux, they are changing all the time. That much they have noticed, right? So therefore, don't pretend. Accept the reality, especially the subtle reality. In our ordinary life also, be honest. That's why honesty is important. So honesty means to tell the truth, whatever has happened. Don't practice duplicity. Say one thing, do another thing. No, that will, you can cheat some people for some time, but not all people for all the time. And especially you can't cheat the law of nature, the law of causality. You can't cheat. You can cheat police also. Okay. but the law of nature is like, for example, law of nature is that we're all going to die. Right? So now tell me a method not to die. Yes, there is a method according to the Buddhist teaching, but generally speaking, there's no method. You have to die. So unless you adopt a very special, ordinarily speaking, you cannot change that. You have to accept it. You have to prepare for that. Right? Right? So therefore, let me check the time. Yeah. So 4:30 to 5:15, we have first session. Okay, then we have a short break. Oh, sorry, not short break. Then we have question answer. So I can teach another 5-10 minutes and then question answer. Okay. So let me explain this first one. All conditioned phenomena are impermanent. All conditioned phenomena means everything that came together or came into being by depending condition means conditioned by causes and factors, causes and conditions. Anything that is produced by certain causes and conditions, anything that came into being by multiplicity of factors, they are impermanent. Impermanent means they will momentarily change. They will momentarily change. All conditioned things are impermanent. Now, the important thing is, regarding this Four Seals, there are many sutras by the Buddha and also many shastras, commentaries, many. And it is said that the Buddha in his lifetime taught these Four Seals many times. And it is also said that occasionally he would be whispering and teaching the Four Seals to animals and saying it in their ear so that they can leave a positive imprint for future lives. Then finally, when he was passing away, and when he was on his kind of deathbed, he called his prominent followers, sanghas, and he said that all conditioned things are impermanent. He taught the Four Seals, and he said all conditioned things are impermanent. The Tathagata, the Buddha, is also passing away. It is very rare to see the body of the Buddha. So you should see carefully the Buddha's body. He removed his upper garment and let people see it. And then he, in a challenging kind of voice, he said, I have given teaching for over 40 years, I think 45 years he taught. Then he said, I taught about dependent origination, I taught about impermanence, I taught about Four Seals and so forth. So now if you have any doubt, any question, ask me. When he was passing away, also he said, if you have any doubt about what I taught, ask me that question. So Four Noble Truth, the Four Seals was taught. And then especially about this impermanent thing. Out of his many teachings, teaching on impermanent was one of the first things that the Buddha taught. Remember that after Buddha got enlightened, when he was requested to give the teaching, to share the nectar, the wisdom, repeatedly by human beings and celestial beings, the Buddha said, I found something which is profound, peaceful, free from fabrication, clear light, unconditioned. To whomever I will teach it, nobody will understand it. Nobody will understand it. Let me do my meditation. So for 7 weeks, he refused to teach. But then human beings, some of the clever human beings and the gods, they again approached him saying that, yes, you are right. What you found is like a nectar. What you found is very, very deep, very profound, very vast. But among human beings and celestial gods, there are some who are also some kind of intelligent. So they may be able to understand a little bit. So please share your nectar, your teaching. And then finally, when he gave the teaching, the first teaching that he gave us on the Four Noble Truths. Out of the Four Noble Truths, the first teaching was the truth of the suffering. When he was teaching the truth of the suffering was taught with 4 features, out of which the first was impermanence. So that's what I'm saying. One of his first teaching was on impermanence. And one of his last teaching was on impermanence. This is so important for practitioners especially. Because ordinarily, like in today's world, people are running like anything. Everybody says, I'm busy. It has become a fashion to say I'm busy. And to be busy is, people think it's important. I'm an important person, I'm busy, You need to make an appointment to come to see me kind of attitude, Busy. Busy for what? It's not important you are busy. What is important is, what are you busy about? So most of the time, we are busy about meaningless things. The most important things we don't do, and we run after, sensual pleasures and the small, almost like toys, small kids running after toy, So that's why we are not getting enough peace, enough happiness, enough harmony. It's really pitiable. Look at the so-called famous leaders of the most powerful nations. What are they doing? They are flexing their muscles, right? Updating their destructive weapons. Now the weapons they have in their stockpile can destroy millions at one go, perhaps at the push of a button. This is what we are doing, especially the leaders. And almost 80 to 90% of the scientists do whatever their benefactors ask them to do. But Buddhist teachers like Shantideva, he says, you don't have to kill people, they will die. I mean, you can see how, I'm not saying I'm clever and rest of the people are stupid. I'm not saying that. I'm simply following the teaching of these great teachers with wisdom. So you can see who is right, who is wrong. There is Shantideva and other Buddhist teachers who say you don't have to kill people, they will die. You don't have to create more suffering, they are already suffering. Then we have the so-called intelligent world leaders who are, as I said, flexing their muscles and strengthening their arms and emanations to destroy these fragile people. I mean, look at this word, all conditioned phenomena, impermanent. Impermanent means you don't have to kill, they will change, they will die, they will disappear. So what are we doing? So therefore, understanding impermanence, and impermanence, there are grosser level of impermanence, which also, generally speaking, is easily noticeable, but still we should make an attempt, to see it. Because again, in the case of the ordinary people, we normally see what we want to see, not what we should be seeing. That's the problem. We keep on seeing what we want to see, not what we should be seeing. So therefore, Buddha said, no, please see the reality. We don't want to see. Buddha said, see impermanence. And we are saying, no, everything is impermanent. My house is impermanent. My husband is permanent. My house is permanent. My husband is permanent. I'm going to live permanently. We have that grasping. So we don't want to see the reality. Buddha spoke about suffering, and we don't want to talk about suffering. We want to talk about happiness only. Yes, you want happiness, but you also accept the fact. And in fact, many people, they might think, oh, Buddhism is a pessimistic religion. It keeps on talking about suffering. No, Buddhism is not a pessimistic religion. It is a realistic religion. The purpose of the Buddha is to help you wake up from your deep sleep of ignorance. So therefore, you need to know the sum totality of everything. Its good aspect, negative aspect, your own emotions and things like that, so that you can get rid of what you want to get rid of and cultivate what you want to cultivate, right? So therefore we use, for Buddha, we said the fully awakened one. The fully awakened one. Buddha means the one who is widely awake. So that means the rest of us are not awake, which means we are sleeping. Sleeping where? Sleeping in ignorance. A clear indication is that we make continuous mistakes, continuous problems, continuous sufferings because we are ignorant. Nobody wants to suffer, but we suffer because of ignorance, right? So therefore, it is important to know all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. Okay, so I stop here for question answer. Some questions. We have 15 minutes for question answer.
Geshe-la.
Yeah.
This is me, one of Marion speaking.
Yeah.
I do not hear many questions. Maybe somebody will raise their hand or their voice to ask a question. But if not, I think we would all be very happy if you would continue your teaching for, let's say, another 10 or 15 minutes. Then we have a break. So, because, you know, maybe we can have the question and answers at the end of the teaching, so people have more time to sort of digest what you have been teaching us. That might be a solution. Even though I see maybe one question in the chat. One lady, she asked the question, can Geshe Lhakdor talk more about the subtle impermanence?
Yeah, I'm coming there. Yes, I'm coming there. So as you said, I'll continue and then speak about this subtle impermanence.
Thank you.
So I was saying that with impermanence, there are grosser level of impermanence, subtle level of impermanence. Grosser level of impermanences are those changes which we can see. For example, you can see a house collapsing. You can see a person dying. You can see your cup breaking, things like that. Okay? So there is a grosser level of impermanence. But the important point here is, it is not enough to see, but you need to feel it. So that's why we say, normally we say that even if you see a fly dying, which you can see, it's a grosser impermanence. Even when you see a fly dying, tiny little bug dying or fly dying, then you should, from that, you should learn that I'm also not different from this bug, from this fly. I'm also subject to death. I'm subject to impermanence. You need to think like that. What is the point of thinking like that? The point and benefit of thinking like that is because normally we don't even recall that we are going to die. We're completely lost in our day-to-day mundane activities. So therefore, it is important to know that death is definite. Unfortunate, right? Death is definite. But even if the death is definite, but if we know the time of the death, then perhaps we can have fun in the early part of life. And then later part of life, we do some meditation and practice, right? But the time of death, unfortunately, is indefinite. Even if you live 100,000 years, normally these days, maximum you can live 100 years, not more than that. So one has to really, like, not only reading in the book, but one has to relate to oneself. For example, if you are, say, like 50 years old today, you're lucky you already reached 50 years. That means many people don't survive to that level. They die, some young ones, they die in the womb of the mother. Generally, we think that the elder ones will die first and the younger ones will die later, but there is no definiteness. As I said, sometimes people die in the womb of the mother. Sometimes when the babies are just about to crawl, just about to run, they die, right? So the point is, there is no definiteness in the time of the death. Let me tell you this story, very interesting story. Once upon a time, there was a person who made friendship with a ghost. The ghost had some kind of clairvoyance. So this friend, like, let us say this friend is our representative. So this friend said, I'm a little bit, scared of death, but I also want to have fun in my life. That's what we say. So he told his friend, because of that, when the death is quite close to me, please inform me. Before that, I want to do my practice. So the ghost friend said, yes, okay, my friend, don't worry. So time passed, and one day the ghost came, and he said, my dear friend, one of the family member living up died yesterday. Then this human friend said, oh, so sad. Oh, mani pe me hung. Something like that, huh? Oh, mani pe me hung. So sad. That's what we also do. But it never occurred to him that next will be his turn. So he didn't do his Dharma practice. He continued having the so-called fun in the life. And time passed. And then after a while, the ghost came again. And he said, my friend, one of the family members died last night. He said, oh, is that so? It's so sad. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. But he continued his usual way of life, didn't bring about any change. And then one day, the ghost came and he said, my dear friend, it is your time to go. Now it is your time to go. Then this human, this person, he expressed some kind of shock, saying, what? I requested you to tell me a little bit in advance. Now you're saying it's my time to go. Then this ghost said, I've never met a person so stupid like you. I told you 2 times that one member of the family died up, one member of the family died down. When you have heard this, you should know that your time will also come anytime. So it's like that, you see. It's like that. So therefore, one has to think about the purpose of thinking about the death is not to frighten yourself, because death itself is, if we properly, understood the death, there's nothing to fear actually, right? Because death means death of the body, not of the mind. There is no death to the mind. You should fear death only if you have committed many negative deeds. Then the consequences you will have to suffer, right? So with that understanding, when you have the opportunity, when you're alive, as much as possible, you should start doing practice, which basically means, developing compassion and benefiting others as much as possible, things like that. And if you do that, when the death comes, it's really like, you're returning your home. There's nothing to worry, nothing to feel sad. So therefore, it's not enough to just observe the things, falling and getting destroyed. We should learn that next may be my turn. Therefore, now, since I have this opportunity, I must practice. Even today, right now in the world today, there are many people who don't have access to Buddhism. They don't believe in Buddhism. And among Buddhists also, as I said, there are many who, due to this or that reason, are unable to practice, right? And there are many who may be Buddhists, but because they are very poor or have many other problems, so they struggle for their livelihood, forget about doing the practice. So therefore, many of us are relatively very lucky. One, we have this wish to do. Another, we have the needed facilities, right? So that's important. So it's not enough, to say, oh, this is gross impermanent, the house is collapsing. Not just like that. Related to yourself. Now the changes in the grosser level takes place because changes are taking place at the subtle level. Momentarily things are changing. If momentarily, the problem is, when you look at the grosser level, you think, oh, this is Geshe Lhakdor. And tomorrow you see me, you will start thinking, oh, this is the same Geshe Lhakdor. Sometimes even after 1 year, you see me, if I've not, facially or physically, if I've not changed much, then you'll say, oh, this is the same Geshe Lhakdor. Right? Not realizing that lot of changes have happened, because at every click of not only hour, but minute, not only minute, but every click of second, things are changing. Now, this can be proved through scientific study. Scientifically, they say that every kind of chemicals and the atoms and the cells, they're changing all the time. So much so, they say that after 7 years, everything, cell and whatever genes, whatever you have, everything goes complete change. There's a story of a criminal who was once caught and imprisoned, Then he remained in that prison for 7 years. And after that said, I'm now completely different person. So please release me. Because he must have heard this scientific explanation. Right? So there's the thing. And there is also another story of a person who goes to the Buddha and requests him to give a teaching. Then the Buddha said, yes, okay, no problem. But before that, you just go to the river nearby and bath yourselves 3 times, and then come to me and I'll give you the teaching. And this person says, yes, sir. He goes to the river, baths 3 times, and come back. And says, now I bathed 3 times as you suggested, so please give me the teaching. Then the Buddha said, have you bathed in the same river? This person said, yes, I bathed in the same river. I bathed in the same river. I took the first bath, then came out. Then I went to the same river again, bathed. Then I came out and then went for a 3rd time to the same river and bathed and came out. So I bathed myself in the same river 3 times. Buddha said, no, you're wrong. The river never remains still, it just flows. So you cannot step into the same river twice. So there's so many examples like that. Only if we pay some concentration, attention, everything is like bubbling. It's changing all the time. So once you understand, then where is the reason to develop that grasping? So, I mean, if you understand this subtle and grosser level of impermanence properly, right now we are only talking, if you really meditate on it and think deeply, like for example, when we develop kind of desire or attachment to a person, thinking that this person is beautiful, this person is handsome, but this person, you're only seeing his or her grosser level. But at deeper level, that person is more or less just a bubbling energy, right? So appearances are deceptive. Appearances are deceptive. And then if you look at this development of attachment and so forth, these are primarily based on our mental projection, right? Okay, now short break.
Thank you very much, Rinpoche. Thank you very much for sharing your bubbling energy with us so far. I saw that a few more questions came in on the chat. I think we will just sort of keep them for the next question and answer period. Thank you, everybody, for listening and for the questions. We will be back at 1:15 sharp. That would be nice to start again. Thank you very much. Dus iedereen 1:15 weer hier, dan gaan we verder. Dank jullie wel.